Hi, good morning. Okay, so I just wanted to take a few minutes and acknowledge that it is a brand new year. We're heading into, 2022. We're now 12 days in, so not really heading into it. Um, but just wanted to take a few minutes and acknowledge that 2021 was a good year for some, a hard year for others, an intense year politically and an intense year with the continued pandemic. 2022 seems to be starting off pretty strong with additional concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic that is just a little never ending at this point. Last year, on January 1st, we had a simple goal setting worksheet that we put on your doors. I did not do that this year, but I did want to just talk about the basic idea of setting some simple goals. And I was going to, here in just a moment, I will pull up that worksheet that I sent out last year and I will put it on the screen so you can look at it with me. I will print out several of these and I'll actually leave them in the front office in that little carousel in the lobby if you're interested in the actual worksheet. If not, you can just grab a piece of paper and just jot down any of your goals for this year. So New Year's resolutions do not have to be these big things, things like I'm going to go from not working out every day to I'm going to get up at 5:30 every single morning and I'm going to work out for an hour every day. Right. And then, by day 3 or day 4, you're exhausted, and you haven't started a new habit at this point. You haven't officially ingrained that new habit into your daily life. So that is not the kind of goal that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about when I talk about simple goals is not I want to go back to school, right? I want to go and get my GED, or I want to finish high school, or I want to apply for this really good job at my company. Those are bigger goals, right? Those are goals that are made up of smaller goals. Right. So for example, right, I want to, for me, when I bought my first house, right, like all the conversation about, but I had terrible credit from my early teens or my late teens due to some financial decisions that were made because we all make mistakes. And so about 10 years ago, when I decided that I wanted to eventually be able to buy a house, I knew that I had to start with rebuilding my credit, right? And so basically I went through and I made a list of everything that I owed. And then I came up with a game plan to make some kind of payment every single month. And it took about 10 years or about 9 years to get everything really squared away and get to a place where I had good enough credit to buy a house, right? So when I'm talking simple goals, when I'm talking smaller goals, that's what I'm talking about. If there's a job that you're interested in, right? If you are working, let's say, I don't know, you're a waiter and you want to become an assistant manager, right? Going and talking to your boss and going, what kind of skills are you looking for in this? Or like, if you want to become a trainer at a restaurant that you work at, like, what specifically do you need to know and or show in order to get in that role, right? And then taking those skills and those things that are shared with you and just kind of creating a small plan, right? And furthermore, like celebrating the small goals, right? Like whether it just doesn't even matter, right? It doesn't even matter what the goal is, right? If your goal is to get up 10 minutes earlier every single day or to develop a daily routine, right? Like after I had kids, right, I couldn't get my head around the fact that, my entire day was filled with a screaming baby with my first son, right? Like the thing I finally had to do was go through and go, okay, I'm going to have breakfast around this time, lunch around this time, and dinner around this time. And that was a goal. That was something I worked really hard on for like 6 months until I got to a place where it was a new habit. And it takes about 90 days. And I honestly can't remember the exact number of time. It's something like 60 some odd times of doing something for it to become a new habit, right? Like you have to very specifically think about it and then you have to go out of your way to do it over and over and over and over and over again until you finally get to a place where, okay, this is something I'm just doing now, right? It's like driving a car, right? When we first started learning how to drive a car, we're like, oh, wait a minute, I have to go how fast? And I have to pay attention to all of my mirrors and I have to be looking at the road. There's a lot of stuff going on. And so anytime you're setting small goals for these larger goals, it's just important to think about those smaller things, right? And then to celebrate them when they come to pass, right? So if you are interested in getting your GED, right? And, goal number one might be to get access to a book, right? And that may be buying it, or maybe, asking around friends and families if they have one. And maybe getting a library card so you can go down to the Austin Public Library and borrowing a book, and just doing sections out of it. All of those are perfectly acceptable, wonderful first goals, right? Every single one of those, everything I just said, including getting a library card. I want to go learn a new thing, so I'm going to go get a library card. And the reason I personally would add this into like a list of small goals is because you have to go out of your way to do it, right? So if I have to go out of my way to do something, I want to make sure that I'm giving myself that credit for going, okay, you know what? I have never been to a library, or I haven't been to a library in like 10 years. And honestly, like, I don't know that I've been to a library. I don't know that I have personally been to a library in 10 years. I mean, part of that, maybe like 8 years. It's still been a really long time, like a really absurdly long time. Right. But like, just the very simple notion that you can, at any point, and it doesn't have to be today, it doesn't have to be now at the beginning of 2022, that you decide you want to choose a small series of goals to work on or to work toward. It can be later in the year. It can be whenever it is in your heart that you decided that you want to work towards something. Just because it's the beginning of the year doesn't mean you have to start everything new, right? Like, the reason I bring it up now is it's the big conversation, right? Like, everybody talks about it at the beginning of the year. Oh, what are your resolutions? What are you going to work on? And so many of these resolutions are, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to travel more. I'm going to work out every day. I think the workout one is probably that and the diet, right, are probably the two biggest like resolutions you hear, especially in like modern America and in the media and stuff. But both of them are kind of doomed to fail unless you have like a plan, right? Unless it's like, okay, I'm going to once a week pull up a yoga video, right? And I'm going to try to do that, right? A 5-minute yoga video once a week, right? Maybe you go to Ross and get a yoga mat, or maybe you reach out to me and go, hey, do you happen to have any extras? By the way, I do. If anybody's interested, I've got a few that I can pass out. It can be anything like that. Any small thing that you decide that you want to do throughout the course of this year, I just encourage you to stop and think through the small goals that lead up to that larger goal. I find it, for me, it has been very affirming, been very positive, and it makes me feel like I'm making progress. Not every day, not every single large goal I have, like, are there smaller goals? But when I'm able to identify those smaller goals, it makes that larger goal feel like something more attainable, right? Because when it's something big, like, I don't know, maybe applying for a position as a manager at a restaurant, or, going to work for the city of Austin, or getting a GED, or applying for college, or whatever it is. Those big goals can start to feel very outlandish. They can feel very far away. They can feel very just unattainable, right? And when you stop and you're like, okay, well, what are the steps that make up getting to this larger goal? That was a terrible sentence I just said. What you might find is that those smaller things are things that are easier to check off your list, right? So, applying for a job as a manager, right? I want to be a manager at a restaurant. I want to be a manager at the store that I've worked at, right? Maybe step one is going and talking to your manager, right? Maybe step two is maybe there's some management courses that your company might be willing to send you to, or maybe there's some additional things you can volunteer for at work that may, show management that you care or whatnot. Or, maybe it's going back through past performance reviews, right? There are so many things. There are so many small things and we do them all the time, right? Every single time we make a meal, right? Like, dinner doesn't just get cooked because we said, I want to make dinner. Dinner gets cooked because you go and either you have a recipe or you have an idea of what you want to make, right? That's step one. Step two, you go to the store and you get the food, right? That's step 2. Step 3 is you bring it back. Step 4 is you prep it. And then step 5 is finally you're putting together that meal, right? That's 5 separate small goals that go into an activity that most of us do mostly once a day at least, right? Or at least a few times a week. And so I encourage you to think through this. And this goals worksheet can be small things, it can be large things. As always, super happy to talk to you guys about it and to talk about how to think about that, or hey, what small goals am I missing? Or, what additional steps might I take? Or, I can just kind of help you think through stuff if that's what you want, if that's what you need. And not because I know better, because I certainly do not. I have not done all of these goals. But sometimes it's helpful to have just a sounding board, just someone to talk to, somebody on the outside who can go, oh, okay, cool. Have you thought about this? Right? Like the GED example, right? Like, I want to get my GED. Okay, great. Like, do you have a book? Well, no, but it's, I know it's this much money and I can't afford that. Okay, great. So let's talk about like maybe half price books, or maybe, friends and family, or maybe the local library, or maybe even like some sections online. Right. And really starting to just kind of help, like, okay, like this is what I think the only option is, and just having somebody to talk to. And it doesn't have to be me. It could be anybody in your lives that is, supportive and encouraging and willing to walk through this process with you. Right. And just going, okay, like, no, I'm going to think about all of this stuff, and I'm going to talk about all this stuff, and I'm going to come to a plan. Right. And maybe like the third option for the GED book works out, and it's like, okay, great. Like, I can just borrow it from the library. Right. And, you go from there. Right. And maybe you find out how much the test is, and you're like, I'm going to put a couple bucks to the side. And maybe for like birthdays and holidays, you're like, hey, like if anybody has a couple bucks that they want to throw toward this, right? And you get like a jar or whatever. But there are absolutely different ways to think about this stuff. And I'm always, always open to your ideas and to your thoughts about goal setting and just making some decisions to like go outside of your comfort zone and things that we want to work on. Because I think we all have things we're working on, big and small, every day or most of the time. And I think it's such a cool process. And I think the beginning of the year is just a convenient time to think about it. Right. Because last year ended, and it just always feels like this very like arbitrary, okay, it's 2022. Last year was this for me. Like, what is next year going to be? And if you want to share, please feel free to share with me what you've come up with. I always love to hear your goals and your ideas and your thoughts. If you don't want to, that's also perfectly fine. You do not have to. Zero pressure here. This information is here just for you guys to consider. If I missed anything, or if there's any big questions that you guys have, you're welcome to message me here. You're welcome to email me or shoot me a text message or a phone call. Text messages are, for whatever reason, I don't know why, they're a little bit easier for me, just because I can get them in when I'm with my kids and I can respond later. But I always want to hear more. And if you have any examples of small goals or of larger goals that you guys have accomplished while celebrating the small things, the small steps, would love to hear and potentially share with other people if that's something that you feel comfortable with. Well, let me share this other screen with you so you guys can see the worksheet that I'm talking about. And then that will probably be just about it for this video. Very simple video today. Like I said, just wanted to talk through and think through some of it. So this is the worksheet that we handed out last year. And this one is this one is even a little bit more intense than I was talking about. Right here at the top where it says goal start date, like you can write whatever you want there. Goal completion date, you don't have to have this on there. You can just say like the GED is the thing I keep coming back to. I don't know why, maybe because it feels like it has like a finite time frame on it, right? Because tests are only so often. But maybe, you have a test date in mind, or maybe, your goal completion date isn't the date, it's the final goal. Right. And then here you can write, okay, like what your big goal is, right? I want to complete my GED. And then why it's important, right? And I think it's important to acknowledge your motivation, right? From jump, from the very beginning of the process, so that when it's hard, when you're in between small goals, when it feels like it's completely insurmountable. Not every goal will feel that way, but absolutely some of them will. Making sure that you're jotting that down so that you can later hang this up or hang up your version of this, and you can just think through it. You can just go, hey, it's still important. This is why it's important. I'm doing it for this reason, right? And then you have steps to reaching my goal. So this section here, I don't know if this is highlighting, it is not. But steps to reaching my goal, like that is the piece that I have spent most of this video talking about. Those are the small goals, right? Those are okay, I want to get my GED. Okay, great. What do I need to do that? I need a test book. I need to brush up on my math skills or whatever. And then I need to spend maybe 20 minutes a day studying. And I'm serious when I say start small, right? If you spend more time, great. But if you spend, 15 minutes, don't beat yourself up for that. Just go, okay, tomorrow I'm going to try to do at least 20 minutes. Self-forgiveness in those small things combined with celebrating completion of those goals, it matters and it builds up. It really does. And then what will help me reach my goal, right? So these are I think like the concrete items. So at least this is how I view it. You can obviously interpret this however you want, whatever is most beneficial for you. But in the GED example, right, getting the book or getting a tutor or talking to friends and family, right? Maybe you have a cousin who is really good at math, right? And maybe they're willing to once a week or once every couple of weeks, just kind of answer your questions about okay, well, I don't understand the quadratic equation. Can you please explain it to me? Right? Because when you are trying to self-teach, that can be really difficult, right? And even in this section, the what can help me reach my goal, right? You can even say that. You can say, okay, well, maybe tutoring, and you can write down your support system. Okay, my sister is really good at English, right? So maybe, and she said that she'll let me call. So you can write her name down, right? That kind of thing. And then potential obstacles, right? And these obstacles can be just that can be anything, right? It can be if you are a single parent and you've got 3 kids at home and you're trying to do something like get your GED, or really trying to do anything as a single parent with 3 kids, any kind of goal changing is challenging because you're focused on caring for your children and making sure that their basic needs and your basic needs are met, right? So you can say time is an obstacle. Time's a huge obstacle for me. You can say transportation, that might be an obstacle. You can say money might be an obstacle. Other potential obstacles are things maybe I'll get bored, right? Or, maybe I was thinking about moving, maybe I won't have time to finish this. Your credit score might be an obstacle. There are a ton of potential obstacles out there. And it's worth identifying some of them here so that you are looking at this larger goal that you're trying to come up with as clearly as possible, right? So you are thinking through all the angles, right? You're thinking through how to get it started. You're thinking through what small steps you have to take. You're thinking through what you need to accomplish it. And then maybe what might cause you what might be some obstacles, what might cause some problems or some issues in your path to completing your goal, and then come up with a reward. And I encourage you to come up with a reward for both your small goal completion and your large goals, right? So if you find a book, maybe your small goal completion is I don't know, a candy bar. It could be your favorite TV show. It can be spending time with your dog or your kids, or, maybe it's, you take your kids over to their grandparents for an hour and you get an hour kid free, whatever those goals are for you, right? Jot those down, right? Jot down some rewards for small goal completion, this section here, the steps to reaching my goal, and that larger goal completion. So how might you celebrate if you do go and take the GED test? Not just pass or fail, but take it. Actually completing the arc of I'm going to study, I'm going to buy that book, I'm going to study, I did all this stuff. Okay, great. Now I'm going to take the test. That moment, the moment you put your pencil, is it on a pencil? I don't know. I don't know if it's a pencil and paper test or if it's online, but for the purposes of this example, the moment you put that pencil down, you have completed a goal. Because even if for whatever reason the score is not what you want, when you walk away, you still did a thing. You still went in, You still said, I'm going to try, right? And if nothing else, you walk away with the experience of what that process is like and what you may need to do in order to pass next time. So keep that in mind. Sometimes completing your goals does not end in massive success, right? Sometimes completing your goals is sadly is learning what you needed to know so that you can complete that, so you can actually complete the goal in the way you want to the next time you try. Okay. And I think that I will actually leave it at that because, like I said, I wanted this to be pretty short and sweet. I just wanted to put it out there. And I'm going to try some more of these kind of free form, let's just have a conversation style videos, I think, in the future. So let me know if you hate them. If you do, that's fine. I don't have to keep doing them. Let me know if you like them. I don't know. I like to choose topics and just kind of talk for 20 minutes. Either way, I hope this helps at all. I hope it gives you something to think about. And I hope that I get to hear from some of you about your goal setting journeys and about what's coming next in your lives and what you are working on, because all of you are amazing and the things that you're working on are incredible. And I can't wait to hear more about it. So I hope you have a wonderful day. And if I don't hear from you, I hope you have a wonderful 2022. And I hope you were able to accomplish some of the things you set out to do this year.